Okay, I should be streaming now. And this time I should have better audio, because instead of using that recorder that I was using, I've now got even more complicated by using the wireless microphone that's going through my camera. So I've obviously got better footage of my face, but now you can also see all my grey whiskers and wrinkles. So it's all a big. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, but hey, I'm here. And so last night I went through these. I sort of shared some of the books that I was that I'd got from this fascist bookseller, and everyone seemed to want me to read the book called Ethnic Apocalypse, which is a French book. And I did it. I read it this afternoon. I kind of skimmed over some of the bits because he was just cataloguing Muslim violence in France, and I kind of just got. I was like, yeah, I get the idea, mate, and sort of moved on. But to the next piece of the next bit of outrage, so just to sort of give a bit of a background. So I looked that up. You can look him up. You can look up the author on Wikipedia. His name's called Pierre Fay. This is the guy here. He looks really, really freaky. Eh? He has a apparently. So he's actually quite interesting because I didn't know anything about French politics. I mean, I knew that there was this big French left-wing political scene in the mid-20th century, like in the late 60s, but there was also a right-wing, a lot of right-wing intellectual ferment as well. And there's this European New Right, which is I don't know enough about, but this man Pierre Fay was one of the founding members of it, and sort of this new sort of the new right wing movement and he sort of drifted away from it, or was kind of expelled because he seemed to be a bit more extreme. They seemed to be more sort of a bit more. They were kind of, I wouldn't say racist, but maybe non-racist. And he was obviously very explicitly racist. And he sort of faded into obscurity. But it wasn't until this publishing company translated him and resurrected him that the Americans discovered his work. And so he had a sort of a second wind in his career shortly before he died of cancer last year. And so when you read his books, reading his books is really, it's insightful because you realize that he has a lot of influence on these the kind of far right Americans who have intellectual pretensions, who look to Europe. Let's say, Richard Spencer, the sort of Nazis who they read this guy. He's the guy they read, and you can get a bit of a taste of him. I clipped up a bit of him. I just can't. I mean, he seems a bit rabid. That's the only way I can put it. It comes out in his writing, but seeing him in person really sort of puts it into relief a bit. So I find this bit here. Oh, you look at that President. You've ruined my Easter egg. Damn. If you've come into that, you didn't see that image. Oh my Lord. My life's over. No, here we go. I've completely ruined the tone of this book review with that little reveal, didn't I? Okay, so here we go. Just get back into the criticizing fascism mood, and
I'd very much like to introduce our dinner speaker. He is, of course, Guillaume Faye. And for more than a decade, Mr. Faye has really been one of the most prominent and controversial spokesmen for our race. The only thing is, he has only been known in Europe because only now, thanks to Arctos Media, and they have their representatives in the back of the room, are his remarkable works being translated into English.
Nearly a quarter of the population is no more from European origin, especially in the young generations. Islam is the second religion after Catholicism, and if nothing changed, will be the first during this century. The situation is the same in other Western European countries. It is the threat of destruction of the European white German. German is a Latin word, cannot translate. German, the roots. And you must add to this the collapse of the white birth rate by comparison to high birth rate in the intruders' family. And you must add race mixing. Race mixing, now the métis, the man with mixed race, is an ideal, exactly like the bisexual behavior. The bisexual man, is very good. Oh, you are not homosexual? You are not bisexual? Your lack of experience is terrible. The métis is the summit of the man, the métis, Like was the Aryan for Gobineau, But they are for métis, they are for race mixing, only for the whites. But for the blacks, no. They must remain with his origin, the roots, it's very good. Never in the past, and the French historian André Lavard, but we should speak about it after, said it was a decline of the soul, a decline of l'âme, a decline of the soul of the will in the white populations.
So if you didn't, he had a very thick accent there, but if you didn't catch it, he's outright just saying race mixing is responsible for the decline of the soul of the white race. It's really masks off stuff, and he's if you think about all of that great replacement stuff, that has its basis within France. So the French situation, something which I guess is worth looking into if you're interested in observing these kinds of people, but and I'd certainly like to know more about it because that was the first hindrance. So when I came across, so he's had a range of books, and this is the one which is called Why We Fight. That's I think the one which the members of the American alt-right, that's the one they read. Convergence of Catastrophes. The thing about, you can actually sort of see that he has a certain kind of apocalyptic strain. It's all about imagining the downfall of civilization. It's all very, this book here, The Colonization of Europe, this got him in trouble in France because he got he was charged with I think it was promotion of racial hatred or something, whatever their equivalent law is for hate speech. I think that's what we have. We have a promotion for promoting racial hatred. And then finally, this is the book which I've been reading. This is The Ethnic Apocalypse. And I think the first hurdle I had to understanding it is that I'm not French and I don't really understand the situation in France. So if you're reading this book and you don't know anything about France, it's probably not best to read it without having some kind of more credible book to accompany it, because you have to take most of what he says as true. And I'm sure, I mean, it's sort of like he's just cataloguing a lot of the violence perpetuated by Muslim extremists in France, and I think it's all very Islamophobic. I mean, that's, I guess, what ultimately what the book furthers is an Islamophobic agenda, and you know, there is a basis in fact in the sense that there are there are Muslim extremists in Europe, in France, and that's causing a lot of tensions. There's a lot of tensions there to be had. But what he's doing is he's taking it a step further, and he's saying this is how a war will happen. This is how we will. He says a war is necessary, and this is what makes it really extremist and actually quite a vile quieter. He goes from being that. If you're acquainted with that sort of Douglas Murray sort of soft Islamophobia, he takes it a step further. He just rips the mask off and just goes straight up and says, he doesn't say, "Oh, Europe is slowly dying." He says a war is necessary in order for Europe to rebuild itself. And he goes so far as to promote pogroms. And you're reading through the book, and it seems moored in a kind of reality, but then it gets progressively unhinged. And I can even read you and when the publisher puts a disclaimer at the beginning of a book saying he's not encouraging violence, that he is. Like why would a publisher have to put that disclaimer at the beginning of a book? And so it's quite shocking that Amazon stock it, I think, because there's I've got it highlighted here on my Kindle where geez, I've bought this off Amazon. Fuck me. I'm gonna if I go and find I'm sure there's a ethnic apocalypse, and the French title is Race War, and they've changed it to in the translation. And that will be my second criticism, is that the editing and translation is seriously awful. I think that if politics aside, and the fact that it's a hate, the fact that it's a Nazi, whatever, aside, I would be embarrassed if I was an editor just letting this book through, because he's sort of, I guess part of the reason they have these books and they have this publishing company is because they're not going to get through mainstream publishers, and universities aren't going to have published papers like this, because he just lets his mind run free. There's no he's offering more of a prophecy. He's prophesizing. He's not giving a reason. He's not giving a work of non-fiction. Like if you're a, let's say, a credible journalist, like I've also reading the book. I'm also reading the book the Assassination Complex, which is a Jeremy Scahill journalistic book about the drone war, drone program, the American drone program, and he does a rigorous journalistic. He's not saying unprovable things. He's this is real rigorous investigative journalism. And from that, you can extrapolate what the future will look like, because you could see this. But in a book like Ethnic Apocalypse, all that's happening is he's stringing together a bunch of outrageous, violent episodes, and then prophesizing that there'll be a racial riot which will grow bigger in intensity, resulting in support from Turkey and Muslims being supported by Turkey or whatever to go wild in France. And there's no analysis. He's just saying it. So it's kind of a work of fiction. It's half fiction. This is Nazi shit, right? So they're not living in our plane of reality. Oh yeah, Kaiser, the cover. This is the cover got me, but I'm just trying to find where I find my all the bits I highlighted, where he's just gone. As you heard on that clip I played, where he's just basically straight up saying race mixing destroys the soul of the white of the white society. And you have this genteel Jared Taylor going, "Oh, this man, this intellectual, this French intellectual is the." It's so bonkers seeing these people just applaud this wild crank get up on stage. It's I guess it's only a spectacle you can only appreciate in this era, where, but where a presidential lawyer will just say Hugo Chavez hacked the election. Do you know, this is the world we're in, where wild, crazy people are put front and centre. Do you know? And not to stigmatise crazy as a I'm kind of being ableist when I say crazy, but you know what I'm saying. This kind of people who really who are dysregulated and probably shouldn't be offering sober analysis on the state of our society. So if I don't tell me I've got it on the other. So yeah, and I think this book, because he actually says in this book, because he's writing it knowing he's dying, he's kind of, I get the impression if I read the other books they might be a bit more mask on, because he says in this book that he doesn't care about being prosecuted because what the fuck, he's going to die anyway. So I get this is kind of his final sort of like, yeah, this is how it is, fuck you kind of thing. You know, a final sort of whatever of his extremism, statement of his extremism. Right. So if anyone knows how to use a Kindle, then I would appreciate knowing how I find my bookmarks. I might have to just go and I might just find them manually and just run a search or something. But he has this he also does a sort of I guess interesting kind of anti-Semitism, because he says some things which are just classical anti-Semitism, where, you know, he says French Jews don't see themselves as French, they see themselves as citizens of the world. I mean, that's almost like a typical Nazi sort of thing to say. But then he spends a whole chapter criticizing Muslim anti-Semitism, saying that the real anti-Semites are the Muslims, and they're the ones who are in the war, in the coming race war. They'll be the ones who'll be attacking the Jews. And so that's an interesting kind of they're worse than me. You know, I might be an anti-Semite, but not as bad as the Muslims kind of thing. And he also strikes me as someone who probably doesn't attend church, but like, you know, a lot of these alt-right sort of neo-Nazis, they're not very religious. Like they like to pretend, they like to talk a big game about the destruction of the church, or the lack of church attendance and stuff like that. But I doubt they actually attend church themselves. You know, that's yeah. I strongly get that. I have a hunch that that's the case here too. Here we go. Notes. Oh, here we go. Yeah, and is there something? And so, and I guess the other thing as well is I didn't know. Again, with the editing, I didn't know whether some of the words he was using were just badly translated French words, which might not have the same connotation in France than they have in English. So he uses, when he talks about Barack Obama, he calls him a mulatto, and that's like a word which you don't hear in English language outside of casual racism. But then, of course, he is seeing that clip, I imagine that's exactly why they left it in. That's exactly what he's not. I keep on in my head imagining I'm reading like one of these books by someone like Douglas Murray or something. But yeah, we can verily speak of an African state. Yeah, right. The thing about and that's an interesting thing, because it's almost like it isn't so much what, when you're reading one of these texts, it isn't what goes in, but also what they leave out. And that's what, if there was a proper peer review process or a proper editing process, it would become a lot more apparent. For instance, he talks about, maybe I should read his book, The Colonization of Europe. But he says this term colonization casually. But colonization is more than just people arriving on shores. Colonization is about controlling resources, controlling government, controlling power structures, and owning land. That's colonization. But in his mind, he thinks Muslim people living in public housing is colonization when it isn't. And so I don't know if he's saying it rhetorically or he actually believes, or he doesn't actually understand colonization. And more to the point, he doesn't have any historical analysis when he just talks badly about Algerians. And if there's no mention about, well, why is it that Algerians live in France, my dude? What is it about the relationship France has with Algeria that you have Algerians in France? And you'll find there is colonization, but it isn't in the direction he thinks, and there's not even any semblance of a mention of that. So yeah, so as you say, Kaiser, it's all just it's bog standard Nazi sentiments, and like a lot of these books, I think I could probably read all of these books, and they were probably all. I say this again and again, but I sincerely believe they will have much of the same messages in them. There won't be any. It's not like he's finding new ways to dress up the same old topics. They're not. You said you could find that in Mein Kampf. They haven't changed their message. They haven't changed what they're saying. They've just found new vocabularies and new kind of. When you read this, you're like, oh, he's talking in that French, very highbrow French way, and you're thinking, oh, if I was Richard Spencer, I'd be like, this is good for him because he's found this is giving him a new kind of flowery a treatment of a bit of shine on the old shit. So. I'm not going to find it, but there's this paragraph which is really telling, where he just basically says it's important to be racist. He says that in order to see the enemy, you have to look at them as the enemy. And I'm thinking, holy fucking shit! This is like, if you're reading this and you have a predisposition toward violence, you'd be invading, you'd be raising a mosque right now. This is actually seriously provocative stuff, and there's actually a few paragraphs in it, and I guess most serious people won't read this book. But if you're an unhinged person and you're reading this book, and actually he's saying that war is necessary. Civil war is necessary. We have to dehumanize our enemy. We have to do pogroms. He's saying all this stuff in here. This gives you this gives you a framework, a permissible framework in order to do that. He says that the French government will let everyone down. The only people who will be loyal to the citizenry will be the police, which is probably true. And that sort of. But yeah, this is it's not much of a review because I can't find all my bookmarks have vanished, which is just as well really because I don't want to start doing a reading session on it. But yeah. And so I needed to find something to as a palate cleanser. So I'll just see if I actually wrote some notes. This is how the chaos of my life. I'm everywhere and nowhere. Yeah, so not like I'd recommend anyone would read it. I recommend the cover. I mean, to be honest, the cover is what you don't judge a book by its cover, but this book could have gone several directions based on that cover, and it is quite a cool. It's quite a eye-catching cover, let's say. So and so I give them that compared to all those other sort of bland, sort of beigey ones. It's got my attention, and but it's not like there's no meaningful analysis in there, and I guess nor would you expect it. So I needed a palette cleanser. So if you logged into the stream first thing, you would have seen this already. I had this on my screen, and it kind of ruined the tone of what I was trying to say. And that is this is the book I'm reading now. It's called Abraham Lincoln, Fuck Lord of the Moon, and it's like a really short. It's part of a trilogy which is called the Presidential Fuck Machine Trilogy. It's actually the third part in the trilogy. It starts off with Abraham Lincoln, Presidential Fuck Machine, and then it moves on to Abraham Lincoln, Ninja Fuck Master, and then ends up with Fuck Lord of the Moon. I don't think I have the patience to read the first two. I think I can just get straight to the last, the climax, if you will, of the Fuck Lord, the Fuck Machine trilogy. And apparently he and John Wilkes Booth conspire to fake each other's deaths and then use it to go to the moon. Apparently he had a dojo. He became trained as a ninja with a secret dojo beneath the White House, and yeah, there's a lot of sex. So I mean, it's erotica. I guess it's presidential fan fiction, if that's ever such a thing. So if you want to, if you've spent your evening, as I have been, having your mind bombarded with grim, apocalyptic Nazi bullshit, then you kind of need to have Abraham Lincoln bumming John Wilkes Booth. You know? just to cleanse the palate. Why is it worth $20? You're asking why is it worth $20? Yeah, that's a good point. Like it's I guess they have to pay their they have to. I mean, I wonder how this publishing company. I can't imagine it's Atlanta Nights, worst book I've read, but very entertaining. Atlanta Nights, yeah. I have to write that one down, and because that could just be the next worst book that I read, and I'm definitely going to read the. I think I'd like to maybe talk a bit more substantively about the Scahill book I'm reading, because I'm actually really interested in the drone program, the United States drone, how they're doing their wars these days. I kind of, it's one of these things you don't hear about because it's all just a secret program, but it's huge, and it's good that there's actually books about how it's evolved and who's affected by it, and who's making money off it, and who are the people pressing the buttons and doing the joysticks, and how the president's doing it. And these are all things which I'm really interested in knowing, because I wish I knew the things I feel I should know the answers to, or know how it all works, because we don't. It's like we, well, when I say we're not. I'm not involved. My country's not really involved, but the United States can sort of pull away from its boots, quote unquote, boots on the ground sort of foreign adventures, and is obviously being taken over by this remote control warfare. And I guess it's only going to get more and more like that. Apparently, the British, one of the British generals has talked about how Britain will be the royal army, the British army is going to be replaced by robots within the next decade or something, which is basically just sounds like Terminator. Okay, I'll cleanse it. See you later, guys. And actually, it's probably time for me to go to bed too myself. It's like 2 a.m. So any time between midnight and 2 a.m. is where I'm up at my desk trying to make this video work. And I don't, by the way, I don't recommend Abraham Lincoln. I mean, I recommend it if you want to read Bizarro erotica after, but not just, don't just read it, because I've, yeah, just, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's me. So, ciao.